Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Thank you for listening. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to discover how we can support you and your business.
Good morning.
It's this morning.
Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my distinguished host, Mr. Steve Cook.
Thank you, David. Welcome back, everybody. We really appreciate the kind words we're getting, and the audience is growing a little bit. This is fun. Thank you.
This is fun, and I think, Steve, it goes to show that we have learned something, and we do have some knowledge to pass on, and I think we're covering subject matter that entrepreneurs, they want to understand. They want to hear from different perspectives, and they want to be a part of it. So.
And the one of the fun, side benefits of it, the questions that we're getting in after an episode are, it'd be great to say I had all the answers. I don't, but it's requiring more research. And then I dig into something and I've learned something. So I don't know whether the benefit is teaching or learning, but it really is going hand in hand. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, without question. I mean, I think every time someone challenges a thought or makes a comment, it reinvigorates everything. So I'm not going to spill all the beans today, Steve, but I was previewing your manuscript for your new book that's coming out, the Playmaker's Playbook. And right in the intro, you sort of talk about today's subject, which is mentors and people that you've learned from. And we've talked about mentors before on the show. And you and I are cut from the same cloth there, where they're everything.
Yeah, I think the key is everybody kind of has a mentor, but to be very intentional about going out and finding and acquiring mentors is both a need and a skill in some. It's like I'm lucky in that I have this thing that I can walk up and talk to anybody. It's like I was passing at the time President George W. Bush, actually in Philadelphia, and had the gall to walk over to him and say, "Can I say a word to the president?" Got through security, and when it was all said and done, he said, "Hey, would you like to take a picture?" So I have my picture. It's like I kind of have that knack or audacity. What is it that I'm willing to do that? But I've got an awful lot of people that have willingly, you included, mentored me and trained me and taught me over the years. So I'm proud of it.
I think that's the first point I want to make. And I don't know if you guys are listening to this or watching this, but Steve and I are not of the same generation.
Yeah, he hasn't grown up yet.
And he pays me the compliment and the honor of saying I've been a mentor to him at the same time he's been a mentor to me. And I think most people believe a mentor should be older and more experienced and have done and been in the arena that you're in. And I think that is patently false.
Absolutely. And so age has nothing to do with it.
100%.
So in the book, I bring this up all the time, and what I learned from each of my children, what I've learned from my grandchildren, what I've learned from my partners in business, and what I've learned from my competitors too,
without question.
And I think one of the things that helps me is the ability to compete without hating. So I have, there's no secret in our little geographic area, Grand Slam competes with a business called All-Star Baseball.
Yep.
Good baseball. We're very different, but I have no problems talking to the owners of that company to learn something from them. They do a lot of things we don't do. they do some things I wish I did.
Yep.
And maybe I do something that they wish they did. I don't know that. But I think if you don't limit who you're going to learn from,
I think that's key number one to learning, period. I have the amount of times I've been inspired by some book I read to my kids or some movie I was watching with my kids where there was a double entendre that was really and I just took it as a business thing and jumped on it. I want to add to the mentor thing because I think everybody looks for this idea the mentor is some person sitting across the table from you that opens up their heart and soul and explains the world to you. And that's not a mentor. That's not how I see a mentor.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is. So they don't know, they don't have to know that they're your mentor.
Correct. That's the point I was trying to make.
They don't have to agree to it.
Yeah. It's not a binding contract to be a mentor.
They don't even have to enjoy it. So
yeah.
But you'd be surprised at how many people love to teach what they know.
Uh-huh.
So if you go into every relationship with questions rather than statements, I think there's so much you can learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I'll give you a few examples of mentors that were the mentor in the traditional sense, right? It was the owner of the business that I worked for. It was a partner in a business that I became a partner in. Like those are your mentors that are sort of ever present, right? And you learn an awful lot by asking and experiential learning with that person. But then there's the mentors that, could be an author. And I know you talk about a knack for getting in people's wheelhouses, right? You read a book, you're motivated, you tap the guy on LinkedIn, you meet the guy at a seminar, you go up after the seminar and you're like, hey, your book's amazing, changed my life. And, all of a sudden you're in a car with Zig Ziglar, right?
Yeah.
So, those opportunities and mentorship is what you make of it, not what the mentor makes of it, right? The mentor, a known mentor will teach lessons, but if you're closed off to the learning in the lesson or the learning of the experience, then you're not open to the mentorship that is necessary to grow yourself. I think there's another thing that is, you talked about you're willing to compete without anger or without animosity towards the others. I think egos get in the way of mentorship when they shouldn't, right? Because we talk about learning from failure. You learn so much from failure. And in society, and I know another part of your book was in the intro, is one of the problems kids face today is not knowing how to fail and not being willing to fail. And so in that moment, that person that beat you or outperformed you or did better than you, you're angry at that person, but you're not really. You're angry at yourself for letting that happen, but you let it get in the way of learning from that person who outperformed, right? And I think that's something that you absolutely as an entrepreneur have to just like, there's a song that my daughter's 4th grade choir class learned. It was called Always Be Humble and Kind.
Okay.
Right. And I love those two things together. Always be humble and always be kind, regardless of the scenario you're in. But even in my own world, and maybe this is part of my disease, which is, I'm humble to a point where I don't know what success looks like, but I know I haven't found it. And by many onlookers, they'd say, well, you're wildly successful, right?
Yeah. I think one of the challenges is when you're starting a business, you're young, you have to portray a self-confidence that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, act like you've been there before.
Right. And none of us really did.
No.
It's like if I knew anything when I started my first business, I wouldn't have had to start 8 more.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I think, so in your effort to appear confident, you don't want to ask for help or ask for advice, but that's the only way you're going to get mentors is by going out and seeking it. So that's where, when I say be intentional about it. So I expressed interest. I was a sales rep for a big manufacturing company, and I asked questions of the CEO, president of the company whose office was 2 or 3 hour drive from me. And I asked him a question. He explained it. And after a couple of weeks, me asking him questions, he said, next week, why don't you just come up to the office and watch what I do? And it was then that he sat down and he explained the whole financial system of how that company works. This is a division, at the time, it was a division of AMF, which was in its day was a huge sporting goods conglomerate. And this guy was a vice president of that company, president of our division. And he would spend 3 hours a week, 3 hours a month with me. I would drive to New York, sit in his office, and he made me do these things. And he taught me so that case, the mentor, it was like going to school. He was sitting across the table from me, but that's different than my mentorship that I claim from Zig Ziglar, who, to be fair, I only met him face to face once. We did have lunch together, so I'm sure he talked about it a lot. But
all the time.
Yeah, it's a big thing to him.
Ingrained in his memory.
Yeah.
It's funny you talk about the AMF environment, because that mentorship stems from a genuine curiosity of you and a person willing to teach. And I think there's something in leadership, in mentorship at the same time, where you have to be willing to teach those below you. We go back to that lift while you climb mentality. Well, if that president, CEO of that company doesn't teach that to the people that have the questions about it, who's his successor?
Right.
What's his hierarchy? Who's taken over when he's tired, done, and made enough money to buy a yacht and go do what he wants to do, right? So I think there's this idea that, and I talk about this in my company. I have an open calendar. Well, I have a very
whoa! Why can't I get on?
Hold on, I shouldn't say it. Everyone in my company is authorized to go into my Outlook calendar and schedule time for themselves, or schedule time for me with someone and them that they need help on, right? So I do not limit the exposure to my people. However, everybody knows I'm incredibly busy. Maybe it's because of my calendar situation, but people don't. They choose not to because they think it's jamming me up, or it's something that's not important enough to get to me. And that's never the intention of what I want. And so I think this idea of your people need to realize, and you as a person looking for a mentor need to realize that there is an intrinsic value, whether it's a personal satisfaction of teaching or something. Leaders want to lead. They want to teach. They want to inspire. But if you are afraid to talk to them, they have no opportunity to do so, right? If you're afraid to ask that question.
Yeah, I think you need to approach the people that are the most self-confident. I mean, that whole situation with AMF that I explained, down the road, I ended up being vice president of the company, and and that's credit to him, not to me. Yeah. I mean, he's the one who saw something that said, okay, I'm going to train him for that. But if you go to people like that was Bill Sorensen. I'll shout him out all day long. If you go to people like that and they're so willing to help you, the biggest and the best are more willing to help. Those that aren't are the ones insecure, and maybe they're not the ones that you need to learn from right now. But I also talk about in the book my daughter as a mentor. So there's no one that taught me more about dedication than her. She's a marathon runner, musician, and all these things, not involved in any of my businesses at all, or does she have any interest. But just by me watching her, I've learned about what she does. And when you talk about, how do you manage a schedule better? I watch what she does and say, wow, it's like the things that wash out of her life, she doesn't need. She doesn't watch a lot of, she doesn't binge watch anything, so that you can learn from anybody if you're willing to study. And sometimes it can be just an author that you just need to listen to. You don't actually have to ever meet.
Correct. And I think that comes to the sort of the crossroads of the intersection of mentorship and lifetime learning, right? They're one and the same, in my opinion. The question is, where are you getting the information? Are you getting it from an individual, or because they are in that sort of direct mentor capacity, or are you getting it from an individual who's done the work, put in the time, and has written the book to give you the information, as opposed to reach the many as opposed to the few? Right?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I didn't think about this, but accepting the mindset of lifetime learning before getting mentors. And I apparently bought into that early on and knew that I had to learn. And I was going into a business world that I had no business being in. I went to school to be a physical education teacher. I knew sports, and I knew sports, and I knew sports, and that's pretty much all I knew. And so for me to learn, I had to do that. And I'll never forget, the time I invested $129 in myself to buy a Tony Robbins set of audio tapes, I think it was the Power Within or the Power Hour or something. And all of a sudden I said, wow, I never thought about that. And until you ask, you're not going to learn.
Looking for small business consulting? Visit paradigmplaybook.com to book a session with us.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I'll tell a quick story. A mentor of mine, one of my first business mentors, was teaching me about entrepreneurship. His name's Jim Doerr, very successful. He was CEO of a large gas company, started his own business after he moved out of corporate America. And I got the opportunity through a friendship to work for him. And he was just teaching me about the expansive stuff that you sort of have to know to be an entrepreneur, the stuff that you have to learn to be a good entrepreneur. And he said to me, listen, I'll sit with you on a weekly basis, and we can talk, we can pontificate essentially, rather than focus on business or sales or all that. Like we'll just come in and we'll have a scheduled meeting, and we'll talk, and I'll sort of teach you and show you. And what I learned in that environment was you've got a brain there that's got 40 years of corporate experience, 30 years of corporate experience, plus his own very successful business. Like, bring the questions. Mm-hmm. So I'd ask the questions, and it would spiral, and I'd learn about all this stuff. And so when I found him to be one of the most intelligent individuals I ever knew, right? Just I don't know if it's because he shared so much with me that I found him intelligent, or that he's actually that intelligent. No, I'm kidding. If Jim, if you're listening, he's a very intelligent individual. What I realized in that minute is, when I go to these seminars or these workshops or these symposiums or these conferences, I pay attention to body language. I pay attention to people. I pay attention to speakers, and I try and identify the smartest person in the room. And I'm like a laser beam, tractor beam to that person. I'm going to make my way to them at some point, whether it's the happy hour or the session after, or whether everybody's gone and that person's sitting over there, or while they're by themselves. I too have the audacity to interrupt somebody and to say, hey, can I just steal a minute of your time? Like, first of all, I was very inspired. Always the compliment sandwich. You're inspired by what they do. And can I ask you a question? And Steve, 10 out of 10 times, I get 2-3 captive hours with that person. I schedule a follow-up meeting. I fly out to sit with them. So again, I sort of, when I go to a conference, I'm looking for the mentor.
Well, I think an important thing is to first put yourself in the situation where the people are going to be. The line that, if you find yourself being the smartest person in the room,
you're in the wrong room.
Right. Find a new room. And you do that by, and I guess you have to have an intrinsic, enjoyment for going to these conferences, but I love hearing public speakers. I love hearing motivational speakers, and so all these things, and I can learn, some of it's just stories I learned, some of it's techniques, some of it, there was a part of my life where I was getting involved in baseball. I didn't know that much about it, so I started going to baseball conferences and found myself, sitting and having a conversation with Dusty Baker and Bill Verdon, and I've told this story about, drawing a blank, worked for the Angels, managed the Cubs, managed the Marlins. Anyway,
he was a good manager.
Yeah. He won the World Series for the Cubs. So I went and started talking to him, and I started asking him something specific about hitting. And then after I left that meeting, and I had a habit of doing this, I would go handwrite a note in my car before I left the meeting and mail it from the conference. I just wanted to make sure that I got something to him before. And I immediately got a message back from him. He said, "You really pissed me off. You got to me before I got to you." This was a guy who was successful in baseball. I'm asking him about how to grip a bat or something. Yeah. And he's just mad because I was more aggressive. But it developed a friendship and mentored, and he was willing to talk to me. And you know what? When I call him, he picks up the phone.
And that's what it's about.
You told the story about John Felsky. Was it John Felsky that came to our...
Nick Leva.
Nick Leva was at our clinic. John Felsky is another story, who called me, by the way. But tell the Nick Leva story. That's another one talking about the learning mindset.
So we got together and said, "Hey, we're gonna revolutionize coaching in southeastern Pennsylvania, and we're gonna bring in the best coaches in the area to teach the local high school coaches and the travel team coaches about the sport of baseball." And we've got 5 speakers, all Division I college coaches, and then we've got Nick Leva, who at the time was managing the Pirates, as the keynote speaker at the end of this event. And there's probably 45, 50 local coaches. And Steve and I, in our typical fashion, are in the first couple rows, and we are just feverishly taking notes. All the high school coaches, everybody else are sort of just sitting there listening. And there was one other person in the room who was taking furious notes. And it was Nick Leva, the keynote speaker, listening to all the Division I college coaches about what they do and how they prepare and what they do. And he's taking notes on all of it. And he's simultaneously learning and creating his speech at the same time to reflect on the sort of overall overarching message that all these college coaches gave. The amazing part to me was that Nick Leva, the guy paying attention to everything, showed up early, stayed late, was there for the entire time. When he's up speaking, the college coaches are in the back on their cell phones, not paying attention to it. And, I think the people that got the biggest benefit out of that entire event were me, you, and Nick Leva.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, we had, it was a great event, but it was a learning experience for me. We can't do a podcast without me bringing a book into this. So I have to introduce a book that, again, this is a gentleman. If I know I'm going to hear a speaker and they've written a book, I will do whatever it takes to get that book before I get to the conference and read the book and then bring up something in one of the last 2 chapters of the book. It's just...
And you wonder why he's able to get and penetrate and talk to people.
Well, so it's different. Anybody can quote something out of the first chapter
without question,
but by learning something in the end of the book. So the gentleman speaking was Waldo Waldman, who was a Air Force pilot, fighter pilot, and he wrote a book called Never Fly Solo. The entire point of the book is that you need help. You need mentors. You need people that you can lean on. And in his world, he calls them wingmen. And he has wingmen. And he said this to me, and this sticks in my head. It's like, people will start a business and don't think they need a wingman. But if they're going to the bar that night, they need a wingman.
Yeah.
He said, it doesn't make sense. You need all the wingmen you can get going into your business. And all of your friends and family want to be, even the ones that disagree with what you're doing in your business, want to be on your wing because they want to guide you. They want to course correct you. And there are all those people that you think, and I challenge, here's another one that I talked to after sitting in the back of the room after his talk. And he says, you know what? You have mentors in your life that you're not recognizing. And you have to open your eyes wider, ask a few more questions, and they will appear to you as the ones that want to help you the most. And it's an incredible book. I highly recommend it. It's a quick, easy, fun read. And everybody's kind of learning that I kind of lean towards fun reads, but never fly solo.
So it's funny too, because I think there's a real correlation here that needs to be discussed. Those of us in life that have had the privilege of being mentored well and effectively turn around and mentor others pretty well and effectively, right? That's, I mean, the whole reason for the book, the whole intro talks about the
whole reason for what we're doing right now is because, consider this a mentor session. And if you don't get it, we want to mentor you. We want to help you. That's everything that we're doing with Paradigm Playbook. That's the purpose. It's give back, before it develops. And I mean, this isn't obviously a big money-making venture for us in what we're doing, but it is very fulfilling in that the people that have come to us as a result of this, that we can help. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I mean, you're spot on though. I mean, it's the idea. There's an intrinsic value that you get interpersonally when you help others find success for themselves, right? It's the skill of true leadership. A boss, or they say a good leader can tell someone how to be successful. A great leader can show them how to find that success in themselves. And so this whole Paradigm podcast, the Paradigm Playbook podcast, is all built around the mentorship philosophy. So you talk about how seriously we take this subject matter. I mean, it's sort of everything. The
time out 1 second.
Go ahead.
Joe Madden.
Madden.
Joe Madden was my guy.
Is it Joel?
Joe Madden managed the Cubs, and
he did manage the Marlins too.
Yeah, the Marlins and the Angels. When I met him, he was the hitting coach for the Angels, and we ended up sitting for 4 hours talking hitting. And in fact, he gave me the manuscript to his book before it published, and he said, "I'd love your opinion." Which, wow, I was like a middle school coach.
Yeah, well, and it's. So here's an interesting piece. We always say that in our business, people judge your intelligence by the questions you ask, not the stuff that comes out of your mouth. We use different words, but the general purpose is the same. So in that moment, there you are with a guy who's made it to the highest echelon of the sport, is teaching the hitting, being the mentor to professional athletes, and he asked you to read it and give feedback, because in that moment, your questions dawned on him the intelligence level that you were seeking to bring to the table. And that is the respect earned.
Yeah. And so it's fascinating. So I think never underestimate who can be a mentor for you, where you can get them, how you can reach them. The more people you talk to, and it's like, I'm big on networking and putting myself in places where I can talk business. I'll go to, a ton of business lunches. I don't go to, meetups that are held in bars after hours, just because I don't find the conversation as enlightening. But, tell me there's an open conference somewhere. I listened to one. I was on and off for 3 days on the recent Grant Cardone conference. Did you see that one that was going on? And back and forth. And I heard everywhere from Arnold Schwarzenegger to Peyton Manning and all these great speakers. And all I need to do is pick up one tidbit from any one of
nugget,
them. Yeah.
The golden nugget.
Anyway, everybody needs help. I think we can agree and focus on that. And if anybody needs help in finding a mentor, reach out to us. We'll help connect you with people in your area, people that we know that are more than willing to help.
Yeah. And I think a big takeaway that I hope everybody gets from this episode in particular is mentors are out there. And, I'm in the financial services industry, college planning industry, and, look left, look right, you're going to find a financial advisor or someone out there. But I don't seek a lot of mentors in the industry because I'm trying to differentiate the industry. I seek mentors outside of my industry. I seek mentors outside of my business. At the end of the day, businesses are not that unique that what applies to one does not apply to the other. And so I think it's important that you broaden the horizon and you look for mentors that may not be like, I'm in a mastermind group and I'm the only person in the financial world in that mastermind group. I'm also in another mastermind group that is only financial advisors, and the difference in the advice, one is tactical and one is psychological, right? One is like, oh, you should do this. Here's the program software we use. The other one is, well, we scaled out by doing X, Y, and Z. Now, how does that apply to my business?
And I think too, if you have something that you're contemplating and you ask anyone, if I go to Dave and say, I've got a real problem. I have a wood banister and invariably Dave will say, hey, I got a guy, and everybody's got a guy. I got a guy. And that's what you need to find. So you look for topical guys. There's a guy, it's like, I got a guy that can do woodwork. I got a guy that
or gal. We're not trying to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. I'm sorry. If you know a person that can help you in that, and sometimes it comes to you. Someone was looking at some work I was doing, sheetrocking a wall, and they say, you know what? You need my guy. Anyway, get the help is out there. Everybody wants to help you. Seek help and listen.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. That's it for today.
I got one last quick thing do it. We're going to be introducing a new segment. We're just starting recording today. We call it 2-minute drills. It's literally going to be 2 minutes on a topic out of a book. So 2 minutes, it either spurs your interest or it's nothing, but it's only going to be 2 minutes. We'll let you know as soon as they're available, but we're starting on it today.
Awesome stuff.
Okay,
all right, everybody. That's Paradigm Playbook.
Make it a great day.
Do you want your business to thrive? Visit us at paradigmplaybook.com and contact us today for expert assistance.